Welcome back to Everything We Know. There is another big poll out today, this time the first poll on the Pennsylvania Senate race between Republican nominee Dr. Mehmet Oz and Democratic nominee and Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. Um, this is a state that was won by Joe Biden by about 1.2%. Pat Toomey, the retiring Republican senator, won by 1.6 points, as you can see here, just a couple years ago, back in 2016. And then 6 years prior to that, he won by 2 points. So it's trending blue here. Very high level. This poll sampled 500 likely voters, and Fetterman is up 46 to 37. That's a 9 point spread for Fetterman. All right, let's go over to a little bit of analysis on this before we jump into the actual poll. Um, Again, all the links to all of these pages that we're looking at here today are going to be down in the description along with our Twitter. We're going to be talking about this as well. Please engage with us there. Put your comments down below um, and what you think our next videos should be on. We could always use some great suggestions. At a very high level, like I said, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman holds a 9 point lead over celebrity doctor Mehmet Oz. There is a 13% that remain undecided in the race, while independents are pulling away some of those voters as well. What it also shows is that their state attorney general, Josh Shapiro, who's the Democratic nominee for governor, only holds a 4 point lead over state senator Doug Mastriano. Again, with 13% of voters being undecided in that race as well. So it seems to me that Fetterman is much more liked as a candidate than Dr. Oz is, or much more liked as a candidate than even Josh Shapiro is running for governor of the state. Okay, so let's dive into this poll here, put out by Suffolk University in USA Today. It's a bit of a mess, very old-timey looking here. So I will do my very best to break it down for you in a way that we can understand. So 500 total voters represents 100% of the likely voters that they surveyed. So we see here 230 said they would vote or that they lean toward Fetterman. Now that's an interesting distinction. They asked the question, whom would you for whom would you vote, or toward whom would you lean at this time? So they're not even asking for a definitive answer on this. So the results are going to be a little bit wishy-washy. But you can say 230 represents 46%, and 187 voting or leaning Oz is 37%. There's an additional 66 people, or 13%, that are undecided. And as you look around the region, we see the South and the Northwest leaning Democrat, as well as the Northeast area and Philly, all leaning Democrat. The Northwest leads Republican, and males tend to lean toward Dr. Oz, whereas females heavily in favor of John Fetterman. Let's move on down here. In terms of how interested are you in the Senate race, 37% extremely interested, 32% very interested, 22% somewhat interested, and you have roughly 8% that is not decided at all, or not interested in it at all. Men in Pennsylvania tend to be more interested, as you can see by these numbers, than women are. Again, when you get over here to Democrats, you've got about the same numbers in terms of extremely interested. Very interested, Republicans tend to lead in that column, and those who are somewhat interested are leans a little more toward Democrats. What that means is that Republicans are a little bit more enthusiastic about coming out to vote than Democrats are, and so that's very important. We should also look into how many Republicans are backing Dr. Oz. It's only 76%. whereas 10% are going to be backing Fetterman. Conversely, 82% of Democrats are backing Fetterman, 6% of uh, Democrats are backing Dr. Oz. A lot of that comes after a very divisive primary election that went to a recount between Dr. Oz and McCormick, the hedge fund CEO. Dr. Oz is endorsed by Donald Trump, who does pretty well in the rural areas, not so much in the urban areas. So you've got a lot more of those urban Republicans or suburban Republicans who are either sitting this one out or looking over toward the Democratic side. Okay. Um, this one is very important. And if you watched our video yesterday on the polls out of the Texas gubernatorial election, you'll see there that a lot of people were concerned about the economy. Again, 22% overall are concerned about the economy. That's a big deal. Inflation, another economic issue at 13%, gun control at 17, abortion rights at 14%. So you can essentially add inflation and the economy together as one big, huge issue because those are very well tied together, followed by gun control and abortion rights. In terms of gun control, Fetterman, being the Democrat, has an advantage there, and abortion rights, as we saw yesterday, when we look at uh, party affiliation, Republicans aren't really too concerned about it, 5%, versus 22% of Democrats view that as the most important issue, and 16% of independents. And that's who you got to win over in a state so close, where there hasn't been a major statewide election, Senate or at the presidential level, that's gone either way by more than 2% since at least 2010. So that's a big issue that'll come into play. And then the economy, Republicans in general, 27% say the economy is the biggest issue, 21% say inflation is the biggest issue. Dr. Oz has to run into that if he wants Republicans to turn out. Democrats in Pennsylvania not really concerned about inflation. They are concerned about the economy overall at 18%, but gun control at 23 and abortion rights at 22 are what they care about the most. This tells me that if Dr. Oz leans into the economy, he has the opportunity to go after roughly a fifth of Democratic voters that he could get to maybe cross over or at least pull away from Fetterman. Versus on the opposite side of the issue in terms of gun control, 12% of Republicans lean toward that being their major issue. Abortion rights, it's 5%. Therefore, Fetterman actually has a much better shot at pulling over some Republicans on these issues because they tend to view him as stronger. Yeah, when we look at this is also a very, very interesting question to ask. When you ask the questions, I want my vote in November to support the direction President Biden is leading the nation, you get about 24%. Obviously, Republicans is down at 3%, even Democrats only at 46%. Whether you want it to change the direction that President Biden is leading the nation, half of Pennsylvanians agree with that statement, and 24% say they don't want this vote to have anything to do with President Biden and his policies, which means that Dr. Oz, in order to make up those 9 points, is going to have to appeal to this 50% who are not happy with the direction of the country. Governor's race, again, Shapiro up by 4 points over Mastriano. Mastriano has to do the same thing. Basically, Republicans across the country have to be running against Joe Biden and his policies rather than, Josh Shapiro or John Fetterman. You can't, for Republicans, you can't be running against the actual person that you're running against, especially in a state that cares a lot about gun control and abortions rights issues, which tend to lean Democratic when people say that they care about those issues. Republicans tend not to care, as we've seen in these polls. Um, it's not their biggest issue. They have to uh, run on the economy, and pretty similar numbers here in terms of the governor's race, in terms of what they care about. Interestingly, um, there's not really high approval ratings. Here essentially 38% for Governor Tom Wolf. Um, and the big question: does Trump's endorsement help Dr. Oz? Um, Not really. It is actually less likely, 47% compared to 22%, making it more likely that they'll go out and vote. On the Republican side, it's 40 to 14, 43%, no difference. So it's not likely to give Dr. Oz a big boost moving forward, especially here in a general election. In terms of Joe Biden, the favorability rating is 43%. That's actually one of his best favorability ratings across the country. In terms of his unfavorability, you still have more than half of likely voters in Pennsylvania who view him unfavorably. For that reason alone, uh, Dr. Oz has to uh, be framing everything in terms of Pennsylvania against Washington, D.C., and Dr. Oz against the policies of Joe Biden if he needs any chance to be successful. John Fetterman needs to keep doing what he's doing. He needs to um, go out and make sure that he's viewed favorably across the state, and that people, here with his 45% to 27% favorability rating, that's a positive 18-point favorability rating. Um, he's his spread is very good um, on this. He's seen as a relatively likable guy, very down to earth, and generally seen as though he cares about the people of Pennsylvania, and so that's very important to see. Especially when your outgoing senator has the opposite problem. He's seen as very, very unfavorable by a 17-point margin, it looks like there. Dr. Oz, his favorability ratings are in the gutter. 50% view him unfavorably, and 28% view him favorably. That is a skew 22 points unfavorable. So if basically everyone we've talked about, he's one of the most unfavorable people um, going into the November general election. So he has a lot of work to do to rehab his image in the eyes of Pennsylvania voters, and really get them to care about him and know that he's or feel that he's being genuine as an individual. That's been an issue that we've seen before. Tom Wolf, probably about as close as you're going to get to even-handed there. 46% unfavorable, 44% favorable. Mastriano, same thing, 36 and 37. A lot of people haven't heard of him, so he's got to get his name ID up. Dr. Oz, pretty much everyone's heard of Dr. Oz at this point. So there's not a whole lot he can do there. Josh Shapiro, huge favorability ratings overall. That's going to definitely help. And it's interesting that because of such a big spread in his favorability ratings, he's only up 4 points. So that's something we got to look into the into the fall. And the big final question. I mean, there's tons more that we can go through here, but I think this is the most important one. Other than who are you going to vote for, who you're leaning toward, do you think Pennsylvania is heading in the right direction, or is it on the wrong track? Only 29% of people in the state think that they're on the right track. 54% say they're on the wrong track. Democrats in general tend to think that they're on the right track a lot more than Republicans. So that makes it very hard for John Fetterman to divorce his policies from Joe Biden's, and Republicans have to clamp down on that. Same thing with Josh Shapiro. They got to clamp down on that in the governor's race. That's the only way that I see Republicans winning in Pennsylvania in the fall. While the rest of the country seems to be leaning Republican, or trending Republican for this election cycle. My best analysis at this point, and granted, this is the first poll out on this, it is very likely that this is going to be a uh, 3 to 4 point victory for Democrats across the state. So there you have it. We've gone through this poll. Hopefully, next time they'll present it a little bit better and not use what is this, Courier font. Anyway, if you like this video, go down and click that like button, subscribe for more polls, more election content, more analysis. We do have a Twitter, so go ahead and follow that as well. All the links to the Twitter, to the articles that we looked at in this episode are down below in the description. We really appreciate that. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, go ahead and put those down in the comments. We do read those, and we'll take your advice. Thank you very much. My name is Matthew Lucci, and this has been Everything We Know.